It begins in darkness. Before dawn on Friday, October 13th, 1307, an order, precise and ruthless, is carried out across all of France. The king's seneschals, under royal seal, break down the doors of every Templar. The most powerful, wealthy, and feared military order in the world is arrested in a single, devastating blow. These were the Knights Templar. For 2 centuries, they were the symbols of Christendom. They were warrior monks who vowed poverty, but commanded a global financial empire. They were protectors of pilgrims, but were accused of the darkest heresies imaginable. They were charged with denying Christ, spitting on the cross, worshipping a demonic head named Baphomet. History tells us this was the end of a corrupt and heretical order, but history is written by the victors. The Templars were destroyed, their members tortured, their Grand Master burned at the stake. What if the official story is a lie? What if the charges were a smokescreen for something far more sinister? Today we uncover the 7 darkest secrets of the Knights Templar, secrets of power, wealth, and a conspiracy so vast it led directly to their annihilation. Our first secret begins with a paradox. They were called the Poor Soldiers, but they were a global superpower. Their official name was the Poor Soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon. This name was a brilliant piece of branding, evoking humility and piety. But the reality? The Templars were anything but poor. They invented international banking. A pilgrim traveling to the Holy Land no longer needed to carry heavy, dangerous amounts of gold. He could deposit his money at the Templar Temple in Paris or London, receive a coded letter of credit, and withdraw the equivalent amount in Jerusalem. It was a revolution. With this system, wealth poured in. Nobles, merchants, and kings used them as their personal treasury. They acquired vast tracts of land across Europe, owned castles, farms, vineyards, and their own fleet of ships. They were exempt from all local taxes, answering only to the Pope. They lent enormous sums to monarchs. King Philip IV of France, the very man who would destroy them, was one of their biggest debtors. The Templars had become a state within a state. Their darkest secret wasn't heresy, it was their balance sheet. They weren't just soldiers, they were the first multinational corporation. And in the game of kings, being richer than the king is the deadliest sin of all. This power was protected by absolute secrecy, which leads us to the second dark secret. What truly happened inside their bizarre initiation rites. To join the order, a man had to give up everything. He took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. He was a monk, but the initiation ceremony, held in secret, became the core of the accusations against them. According to the confessions, extracted under brutal torture by royal inquisitors, the process was terrifying. The initiate was allegedly forced to deny Jesus Christ. He was ordered to spit or trample upon the crucifix. He was then, according to some testimonies, forced to give the kiss of shame, an obscene kiss on the lower back, navel, or mouth of the presiding officer. Was this true, or was it the product of tortured minds saying anything to make the pain stop? Historians are divided. Some suggest it was real, but not heretical. It may have been a psychological test, simulating the humiliation a knight might face if captured by enemy forces. A test of absolute obedience, forcing the initiate to prove his loyalty to the order was greater than his conventional faith. Others argue it was pure fabrication. The charges were a template, a copy-paste of accusations used against other inconvenient groups. The Templars' greatest strength, their secrecy, became their greatest liability. Because no one outside the order knew what happened behind those closed doors, the public was willing to believe the worst. The void of knowledge was filled by the king's propaganda. But the initiation rites were not the most shocking accusation. For our third secret, we confront the most sensational charge of all, the mystery of Baphomet. Of all the charges, this was the most sensational. The Knights Templar, protectors of the Christian faith, were secretly worshipping a demonic idol, an idol named Baphomet. The Inquisitors' records are filled with descriptions of this idol, but the descriptions are wildly contradictory. Some knights confessed to worshipping a severed head that spoke prophecies. Others said it was a wooden figure with one face, or 3 faces. Some described a cat or a skull. The famous goat-headed, winged figure we know today. That image wasn't created until 1856 by an occultist named Eliphas Levi. It has almost nothing to do with the 14th century trials. So, what was Baphomet? The secret may lie in a simple mistranslation. The Templars spent 2 centuries in the Holy Land. They spoke Arabic. They even engaged in diplomacy with Muslim leaders. Some scholars propose that Baphomet was simply a French corruption of Mahomet, the name of the Prophet Muhammad. It's possible that the head they were accused of worshipping was a religious artifact, perhaps a reliquary that the inquisitors didn't understand. Or it's possible the Templars had, in their long contact with the East, absorbed mystical or Gnostic traditions that were alien to mainstream European Catholicism. But the most likely answer? Baphomet was a fantasy, a boogeyman invented by King Philip's propagandists. It was the irrefutable proof of heresy they needed to justify seizing the Order's wealth. A fantasy or not, these charges served a purpose. And this brings us to the fourth, and perhaps the realest secret of all. Their downfall wasn't about faith, it was about debt. This is the secret that hides in plain sight, buried beneath the sensationalism of heresy. The Templars weren't destroyed because they were heretics. They were destroyed because they were creditors. King Philip IV of France, the Iron King, was a modern monarch trapped in a medieval system. He was ambitious, waging costly wars against England and in Flanders, and these wars were bankrupting him. He had already expelled the Jews from France to seize their assets. He had debased the currency, and still, he needed more. His gaze fell upon the one organization that had more cash, more land, and more power than he did, the Knights Templar, the very order that held his royal treasury. The plan was diabolical in its simplicity. Step 1. Accuse the order of an unforgivable crime, heresy, to revoke their papal protection. Step 2. Arrest every member simultaneously to prevent them from organizing a defense. Step 3. Use the royal inquisitors to torture them until they confess. Step 4. Seize all Templar assets, their land, their castles, their gold, to pay for the costs of the trial. It was the single greatest, most audacious heist in history. The charges of spitting on crosses and worshipping demons were not the reason for the attack. They were the justification for it. The darkest secret wasn't a demon in a dungeon. It was a king's ambition in a counting house. The king launched the greatest heist in history, but this reveals our fifth secret. The plot failed. He never found the lost treasure or the vanishing fleet. King Philip got his men, he got their castles, he got their land, but there is one thing he famously did not get: their treasure. The main Templar fleet was based in La Rochelle, on the French Atlantic coast. On the night of October 12, 1307, the day before the arrests, eyewitnesses reported seeing Templar ships weighing anchor and sailing out to sea, never to be seen again. Where did they go, and what were they carrying? This secret has fueled centuries of speculation. Were they carrying the legendary treasure of the Templars, the gold and silver from their Paris vault, or something more valuable? Some theories suggest they fled to Scotland, where they aided Robert the Bruce in his war against England. This theory connects the Templars to the birth of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Another theory points to Portugal, where the order was not suppressed but simply changed its name, becoming the Order of Christ. It was this order that would later fund the voyages of explorers like Vasco da Gama. A more provocative theory suggests they fled to Switzerland. They used their knowledge of international finance to create the Swiss banking system, founded on the Templar principles of secrecy and neutrality. We may never know what that fleet was carrying. It could have been gold, or it could have been their most sacred documents, their knowledge, or perhaps even a holy relic. But what is clear is this: King Philip IV launched the world's biggest robbery, only to find the vault was empty. A missing treasure implies the Templars had help. This connects to our sixth secret, a charge that was almost as damaging as heresy: their special relationship with Muslim forces. The entire reason for the Templars' existence was to fight the enemies of the faith in the Holy Land. But what if their relationship with their enemies was complicated? This was one of the most damaging secrets used against them. The Templars were accused of being too close to their Muslim counterparts. Unlike the hot-headed temporary crusaders who arrived from Europe, the Templars lived in the Holy Land. They understood its politics. They learned the language. They knew that survival depended on more than just endless war. They engaged in diplomacy, they formed truces, they even on occasion made alliances with certain Muslim factions against other Muslim factions, or even against other Christian kingdoms. The historian Usama ibn Munkid, a 12th century Muslim warrior, wrote in his memoirs of his friendship with the Templars. He described how they would let him pray in their chapel in Jerusalem, a sign of shocking religious tolerance for the age. Furthermore, the Templar financial system wasn't exclusive. Their banking services were so reliable that even Muslim kingdoms sometimes used them to transfer funds or secure loans. To a medieval European, this was scandalous. To King Philip's propagandists, it was perfect ammunition. They weren't just heretics, they were traitors, colluding with the enemy. But for the Templars, it was simple pragmatism. In the complex world of the Crusades, today's enemy could be tomorrow's business partner. Pragmatism, treason, in the end, the lines blurred. And so we come to the seventh and final secret, the one that sealed their legend, the curse of Jacques de Molay. We arrive at the end, March 18th, 1314. The last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, Jacques de Molay, has been in prison for 7 years. He is an old, broken man. He has confessed under torture. But now, as he is led out to be burned at the stake in Paris, he does the unexpected. He recants. "I declare that all those who are against us will suffer misfortune. Pope Clement, King Philip, I summon you to the tribunal of God. Within 1 year, God will avenge our deaths." It was a shocking final act of defiance, and then the curse began to work. Pope Clement V, who had ratified the dissolution of the order, died just 1 month later from a sudden, agonizing illness. King Philip IV, the Iron King, who had orchestrated the entire plot, died 7 months after that from a stroke suffered while hunting. Within a year, just as de Molay had prophesied, the two most powerful men in Europe were dead. Was it the hand of God, avenging his poor soldiers? Was it a coincidence? Or was it something else? Some have whispered that it wasn't a curse at all, but a final, secret act of the order, a contract fulfilled by Templar agents who had escaped the purge. The curse of Jacques de Molay was the Templars' final secret, a secret that ensured even in their total destruction they would have the last word. The Knights Templar were officially dissolved by the Pope in 1312. Their vast properties were ordered to be given to their rivals, the Knights Hospitaller. In reality, King Philip kept the lion's share. The Templars were erased, but their secrets endure. They were not simple soldiers, they were bankers, diplomats, and victims. They were victims of a new kind of warfare, not a war of swords and shields, but a war of propaganda, finance, and political conspiracy. Of these 7 secrets, which one do you find the most shocking? And do you believe the Templar treasure is still out there, waiting to be found? Their story is a timeless warning that faith and poverty can build an empire, that secrecy breeds suspicion, and that in the end, the most dangerous enemy is not a heretic, but a king in debt.